Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. So in retrospect, maybe I expected way too much from the American public. Granted, I think I've been saying that for most of the past couple of years at this point, but in this case, it's particularly annoying, and for the most part, yes, it is confined to the United States. I should specify this, because when I made the prediction that Lorde topping the sales charts with Melodrama on the Billboard 200 album charts meant that she'd probably have something that would cross over to the Hot 100, well, even despite the lack of an obvious pop single there, it's not like anything on Pure Heroin was an easy crossover either, and yet, not a single new song from Lorde on the Hot 100 right now, and only one on the bubbling under charts. For perspective, Canada got 4 new songs. And do I even need to say the catchphrase anymore before I decide to get it printed on merch or something? Whatever, it's far more of your loss than it is for me. So let's instead take a look at our top 10, where once again, Despacito by Luis Fonsi, Daddy Yankee, and the remix with Justin Bieber is still at number 1. And this should surprise nobody. It's dominant in nearly every category and still has real radio momentum. And I don't really see what stops it before it becomes entrenched as the summer song of 2017, which again, I don't really mind, because when you consider the original, minus Justin Bieber of course, it's not a bad song. What caught me a little bit off guard was the momentum shifts for I'm the One by DJ Khaled and his whole posse at number 2. Sure, between strong streaming, sales, YouTube, it's not going anywhere, but it did have a little bit of an airplay hiccup midway through the tracking week, although the reasoning behind that, fairly obvious. Then we have That's What I Like by Bruno Mars at number 3. Pretty much all thanks but declining, but still massive airplay and YouTube that just won't die despite a particularly bad sales week. But what could be an interesting challenger for our number 1 is the newest arrival and a top 5 debut at number 4. The reason that DJ Khaled had his little hiccup, Wild Thoughts by DJ Khaled featuring Rihanna and Bryson Tiller. I will have more thoughts about the song's actual quality much later in the show, but let me say that if there is a song to challenge Despacito right now, it's probably this one. It's racking up strong sales and streaming numbers, YouTube is rising fast, and most importantly, it actually has radio momentum because Rihanna's a radio darling. I'm curious to see how much momentum will continue into the next couple of weeks, but for now, this is pretty potent. It almost makes even talking about Shape of You by Ed Sheeran seem kind of perfunctory. Yeah, I still personally really like the song, but even I'm getting a little bit tired of watching it die off slowly down to number 5. Then we have Humble by Kendrick Lamar, also down to number 6, and honestly, it might have peaked here on the radio, and while its decline will be slow thanks to YouTube, it's gonna start declining pretty quickly. Similar case for Mask Off by Future, where the sales are even worse and radio has been in freefall despite good streaming, pushing it down to number 7. Now this seems like good timing for Congratulations by Post Malone and featuring Quavo, which rose up to number 8 on just having some modest gains in every category. Unlike a lot of other songs here, it's actually stable. Compare this to something just like this by the Chainsmokers and Coldplay, which fell down to number 9 as it loses in all categories, especially radio, or Stay by Zedd and Alessia Cara, which is barely clinging onto its own radio despite even weaker numbers. Suffice to say, the top 10 is not stable going into the summer, and a well-timed disruption could blow away at least a third of these songs away, probably even half. And on that promising note, our losers and dropouts. Now most of this was good news in the latter category, at least for me. Swang by Ray Shrimmer, Heavy by Linkin Park featuring Kiara, Guile Chesta by Drake, Bon Appetit by Katy Perry featuring Migos, Hometown Girl by Josh Turner, Black by Dierks Bentley. Okay, those last two mostly passable, but still, I'm not really complaining about these losses here. And when you go to our bigger losers, yeah, most of these don't bug me either. To You by David Guetta featuring Justin Bieber, down off the debut to 26. Butterfly Effect by Travis Scott, losing its gains to 95. Woke Up Like This by Playboi Carti featuring Lil Uzi Vert, down to 94. To The Max by DJ Khaled featuring Drake, just flatlining at 78. Really lost hard there. Swish Swish by Katy Perry and Nicki Minaj losing all of its pickups to 84. It was just a rough week for a lot of people. Now, it's not all good news. Gains for Love Galore by SZA and Travis Scott fell down to 81 off the debut debut, as did Do I Make You Wanna by Billy Currington in 93, and I'd be remiss to say that I'm not exactly concerned that Sign of the Times by Harry Styles took a big loss down to 42. I'm not worried that it's gonna miss in a year-end list. It's got several more weeks to accrue points, but again, in the back of my mind, not a good sign. And to round things out, If I Told You by Darius Rucker down to 76, where I think my surprise comes that this song actually picked up as much as it did altogether, that it actually crossed over. Where things get a little bit more exasperating for me come in the returning entries and the gains, especially in the former category where My Old Man by Zac Brown made another return to 86. And I have to ask, was this song coming back worth Lorde not? Seriously? All our gains are pretty much straightforward in that regard, at least, in particular for 2 Chainz, which had all 3 of his singles gain traction. 4 AM featuring Travis Scott up to 55, Good Drank with Gucci Mane and Quavo recovering yet again to 70, and It's a Vibe with Ty Dolla $ign, Trey Songz, and Jhené Aiko, otherwise known as the Best Song, up to 58. The last 2 gains, Reminder by The Weeknd is slowly picking up to 87 off its return, and Strip That Down by Liam Payne featuring Quavo is apparently becoming a thing up to 34. Believe me, even though I actually like this song, I'm still a little bit amazed that it's actually doing well. So now we've got our new arrivals. Wait a minute, we only have 6 this week? Screw it, world hit. I'm gonna be talking about a Lorde song that I actually really like. Let's get to it. Okay, so here's the thing. I think Lorde could have gotten this song to chart with the right video at the right time. And as soon as we get that music video, this is the next single, I expect to see this more on the Hot 100. Granted, we could also get screwed out of a great song. That's happened plenty of times before. So I'm going to talk about this here now anyway in case I don't get a chance to. And look, this is not better than Greenlight or Liability or Hard Feelings Loveless or The Louvre. But as an album closer and a single in its own right, it's a damn great song. Most because it embraces the technicolor gleam of a modern pop song while still maintaining an actual melody as the thickened synths, the steady cracks, the guitar flutters, and the huge swell of backing vocals swirls around her. It's got a monster of a hook. But as much as it is very much a pop song, it's really the capstone and perfect coda for melodrama, where the fear of loneliness and the aching pain of losing musical heroes last year drags her out for another night to find some vestige of connection in a perfect place, all the while realizing that perfection, that's never there, and you're okay with not getting it. And you know, there's a part of me that thinks that a certain thin white duke is looking down at this song with real understanding. He never threw aside pop, so why should her? He gets it. Why can't you? Yeah, for me, this song's pretty damn excellent. It absolutely deserves to chart in the Hot 100, and with all of our luck, it probably will. But in the meantime, let's move on to our significantly less impressive list of new arrivals, starting off with number 100, Real Hitta by Plies featuring Kodak Black.
Always in the field, probably finessing, probably out here Jordan. I wanna know, I'ma love you like I might die tomorrow. I'ma love you like I might die tomorrow. I'm probably getting money if I ain't call you, baby.
Okay, of all the new arrivals, this is the one that's probably the most exasperating for me, especially when placed in the context of what was replaced with this. Seriously, who the hell has thought about Plies at all in years? So for those of you who have no idea who this guy is, a brief introduction. He came out in the mid to late 2000s with a couple of records, none of which are all that good, on the fact of all being too long, dependent on guest stars, and really kind of stupid. Now, he's been churning out mixtapes in the underground for the past 7 or so years, since everybody thought his career ended around 2010, 2011, but it turns out he's planning to drop an album in September of this year where this song may or may not show up on it. Probably will. And since apparently Kodak Black is still relevant for some goddamn reason, we have this. And really, without Kodak Black, this would not have gotten big or any attention whatsoever. I'm not saying that Kodak Black's hook is good, like his verse. It feels lacking in detail and lazy in structuring a lot of his flow. I pretty much have already forgotten a lot of it. But when you have a beat that doesn't really evolve or do much of anything with its drab, toneless synth and sparse trap beat, it's not all that interesting as a whole. At least Plies has a certain braying charisma and a few tolerable lines in his last verse. But that first verse, all that ass got their back started looking like a pamper? Bragging that you saved this girl's number under Febreze on your phone because her butt doesn't smell? I know you're talking talking about money when you describe this girl not being with someone with this much cheese before, but on some level, the fact that we got a song from Plies in 2017 with bars like that along with a Santa reference, yeah, it's pretty damn cheesy. They're pretty damn mediocre to boot. Pass. Number 89, Feel It Still by Portugal the Man.
Feeling it since 1966 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still.
Okay, full confession, I've never really heard anything from Portugal the Man before. I know they've been putting out records since the mid-2000s and have had some low-charting crossover on the rock charts, but this is the first single that I've ever really heard connect and land on the mainstream Hot 100, and, well, there's a part of me that's not entirely surprised that this song needed an iPad and vitamin water commercial in order to cross over to the Hot 100, because any sort of track with this sort of old-school bluesy swagger feels decidedly out of place in the mainstream right now. But yeah, for the most part, I actually kind of like this. There's some groove in the bass line with the squonk of the horns, and I like how it interpolates some of the melody of Please Mr. Postman and twists it in a slightly darker direction. And in terms of framing the lyrics as emphasizing that coming revolution and emphasizing that callback to the 60s, honestly it feels a little bit phoned in, but it's not bad. If I were to have any gripe with the song, is that it doesn't really have much of an edge or bite to it. And frontman John Baldwin Gourley, he's not really helping things. The very thin, frail falsetto just doesn't have the intensity to really match the groove of this song, at least something that should have been a lot better if sung by a better frontman, honestly. Overall though, it's pretty good. I'll take it, although I'm not sure how much I'll remember it, or whether it's gonna stick around. Number 83, Relationship by Young Thug featuring Future.
You know you gon' get stopped trying to check us. Papa X feel like a Malcolm. Yeah. I'm in a relationship with all my bitches, yeah. I need to cut some of them off, I need help. I got some bad things I want to myself. Gotta take the time to cut them off, I need help.
So apparently, Young Thug's most recent record is called Easy Breezy Beautiful Thugger Girls, and it's primarily driven by tones that you'd usually find in acoustic pop, which is a bunch of people who don't know what country is selling this as his country record. And of course, we get his crossover with Future landing on the charts, and wow, I can't be the only one who thinks this is pretty phoned in, right? For one, if you're pairing Future and Young Thug trading sung lines, it shouldn't be this possible for either of them to sound this bad as they do. I mean, Future's obviously worse, he can't really sing without autotune, but the whole glaze of autotune over both of them doesn't exactly flatter Young Thug either. And when you pair it with piano, a chintzy little chiptune synth, and your standard trap beat, and neither artist bringing bars or flows that are all that interesting or distinctive, outside of that pop an X pill like we Malcolm, which is awful in every way, shape, and form. Basically, it's two artists that are capable of better, seemingly not trying to outshine the other, which leads to a really lousy and honestly kind of forgettable song. Next, number 61, First Day Out by Kodak Black.
Bought a iced out AP watch and bought a Cuban link just to match. That was voodoo, that was magic. Nigga be capping, I just be laughing. That was God, nigga was fasting and high. K2 in my mattress, smoking Tunti in my cell. That was my 12th time going to jail. That was my second time going to hell and back for real. But I prevailed. Canary yellow diamonds in my bracelet. Same color as my lady. Bout to heal her with no Jimmy Mack. And go half on the baby.
Okay. We already have a song on the Hot 100 called First Day Out, and while I was not exactly a big fan of T Grizzly, I would sure as hell prefer that he have more hits than goddamn Kodak Black. And while I'm not gonna say that everything he's ever made is absolutely terrible, it's pretty inexcusable. On the one hand, it's more mindless bragging overloaded with the brand names in place of anything that's interesting, and rhymes that barely connect, and when he's not just rhyming the same word with themselves, and all the ways he's going to violate his parole again now that he's out, because that's intelligent. But what I find more than a little bit gross about the song is the framing. After all, Kodak Black, he's triumphant, he's out of jail, he's gone through hard times and dark times in order to see the light, and then you remember that one of the charges that he still has to face beyond his parole that he's repeatedly violating is sexual assault. And considering that he's shown pretty much no remorse for any of his crimes, and the entire song is pretty much glorification of him, along with the implication that he's just gonna continue to commit more crimes, yeah, I got no use for this garbage and anybody enabling. Fuck this trash. Pass. Number 51, Feels by Calvin Harris featuring Pharrell, Katy Perry, and Big Sean.
I know you ain't afraid about pills.
Okay, of all of Calvin Harris's collaborations, this one, I'm not gonna say that it surprises me, but it is a little bit amusing that Katy Perry is relying on Calvin Harris for any sort of hits and relevance considering how badly Witness has flopped. And honestly, I think I enjoyed this more than anything else that Katy Perry has done this year. Most because it's dropping into bright, colorful, early 80s funk with a thinned out guitar line up a thicker bass, and Pharrell trying to get his best Bruno Mars impression on. And I'm not gonna deny that Calvin Harris has got a good handle on this sort of funk, especially when the beat switches up to slightly thicker tones on Big Sean's verse. And I'll say it, I've seen some music critics make comparisons between Big Sean and Ludacris, and while Big Sean is nowhere close in terms of tight wordplay and consistent charisma, this is probably the closest Big Sean has gotten in terms of that. He sounds a lot better ripping off Luda than he does sound ripping off Drake, and I actually think his verse isn't bad here. And while he does have the same goofiness that can occasionally get pretty corny, that stupid parakeet Airbnb couplet is all kinds of stupid. But I think the larger problem with the song is Katy Perry herself, as she sounds utterly tuned out here. I mean, there's more groove and spark on this song than all of your last album. How are you not enjoying this or getting into the song? Well, okay, besides that, I actually really quite like this song. Wouldn't mind seeing it become a hit, so yeah, good job, Calvin Harris. I'm kind of interested in that album. And that's weird for me to say. And finally, number 4, Wild Thoughts by DJ Khaled featuring Rihanna and Bryson Tiller.
When I'm with you, all I get is wild thoughts. Wow, wow, wow. When I'm with you, all I get is wild thoughts.
Let's go!
Well, I think congratulations are in order for DJ Khaled, likely giving Bryson Tiller the biggest hit of his career. But really, the reason why Wild Thoughts charted as highly as it did was because Khaled seems to have figured out a simultaneous release drop that will get a song to chart highly and not neglect the video. And when you couple it with the fact that the album is just dropping, he's got timing on his side. I expect this to go up even higher. All this neglects the question of whether or not the song is any good though, and you know what? Of all the songs that he's released from Grateful, this is by far his best. And again, it's hard for me to give DJ Khaled a lot of credit. Rihanna is actually on her game, and for a song where she's supposedly white girl wasted, she does sound sexy as hell. She connects with her verses and her hook, and points to Bryson Tiller. Yeah, the Adam Sandler movie reference is a little out of left field, but if he's gonna fill in for Chris Brown and having workable interplay and charisma with Rihanna, you know what, I'll take that. But let's get real. The reason that this song works at all is the Santana sample of Maria Maria, which is one of the most aggravatingly catchy guitar riffs to have come out in the last 20 years. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not exactly a fan of how obvious the sample is. Maria Maria was a #1 for 10 weeks in 2000, and when you have a song that immediately recognizable, it can seem a little bit lazy to sample it so blatantly. But that being said, DJ Khaled and his producers did shift the tone up a little bit, punch up the bass groove, which is a good thing, give the entire mix a little bit more depth. The guitar tone actually picks up a little bit more body there. As much as this can feel like a copy-paste, Santana did sign off on it and praise how it preserved a lot of the vibe. And yeah, for as much as this seems mercenary to cherry pick from the last time we had a Latin pop boom, DJ Khaled at least brought on co-stars who knew what the hell they were doing, and overall created a pretty damn infectious and good song that I wouldn't mind hearing a lot more. In fact, yeah, for me at least, best song of the week, a pretty terrific pop song overall. And considering how hard I have come down on all of these artists in the past, that is saying something that I'm gonna praise them here. As for the worst, yeah, First Day Out by Kodak Black, and I shouldn't even have to explain myself there. We're now heading into the summer, and DJ Khaled is probably gonna have a very big week coming up, especially given how well he's positioned himself going into it. Well, we'll see. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectre Pulse, and I'll see you next time.